Right, so in this video, it's all about helping you to identify what is your hidden invisible barrier. What is your deep-rooted subconscious coping strategy? And I want to do this by giving you some examples of people that I have worked with to get to the bottom of their deep-rooted coping strategy. And let you see what happened when they were able to recognize it, identify it, become aware of it, and break free of it, which is quite exciting. So, you know, the clues in the word, it's invisible coping strategy and it's subconscious. That means these things are really hidden. And the way that you get to them is through how you're feeling, not through what you're thinking, which kind of figures, because if you're a highly sensitive person, you're a highly tuned in person, like all the wisdom is in how you feel. So this is a work that involves feeling your emotions, working with what's in the body. And you may know that, you know, everything that's now coming forward in the field of personal development is about somatic work, because we're understanding that, you know, 90% of our behavior, or 90% of what we do and what we create in life is caused by the subconscious and not by the conscious. So unless you're, and the subconscious is basically the nervous system, that's the feeling, it's everything that's not consciously in the mind. So you have, it just figures that you have to work with your feeling in your body, the sensations and the feelings and how they feel in your body, for you to actually make a shift and make differences and work with your subconscious. So what we're learning here is how to work with your subconscious. So this starts with going, okay, so what is it that I want to do? That's a good place to start. What is my heart's desire? What is the thing that I'm looking for? You know, is it like I want to create a lovely place to live, or I want to have, you know, I want to be more successful in my career. I want to have a greater feeling of meaning and purpose in my career. You know, what is it that when you tune into yourself or you think about your life, what is it that you most want to create? That's going to be your starting point, because it takes you to the right point. It's going to take you immediately to the place where you're feeling the resistance. So once you go there, you're like, okay, so what's the next step? Okay, so say it's, I want to create more fulfillment in my career. Okay, so I need to think of ways in which I can change what I'm doing, or get promotion, or move company, or go into business for myself, or just work out what it is that I really, really want to do. Any of those things, you take the first step towards that, and then you check in with yourself as to how you feel. And where you feel like fear and contraction in your body, that's where you're going to find the keys to this pattern. So for example, if I say, right, I want to find myself a more fulfilling career, and then there's this like feeling inside of myself like, well, how am I actually going to make ends meet if I do something else? If I move jobs, or if I move to something that pays less, or something like that. You then go, you take your attention away from your mind and into your body. So you might do that by, first of all, taking a deep breath and noticing how you feel in your body. So this is really getting present. This is getting mindful about how you feel, being present in the moment. And notice where there are sensations in the body. Often it's like, it might be a tightness in your shoulders, might be a tingling in your hands, it might be a feeling in your solar plexus of like tightness, it might be a lump in your throat, or a lump in your stomach. Whatever it is that shows up is perfect, because it's exactly right for you. And then it's to really breathe into that. And even though it's not a comfortable thing to do, because it's like negative emotion, it's very, very powerful, because when you feel your emotions, that's what allows them to release and stop sabotaging you and stop making you feel bad. So you feel your emotion, and then you're like, what is that emotion? So, for example, it might be a feeling of frustration. So, okay, give the emotion the best word that you can find to describe it. Frustration, for example. Frustration, sadness, anger, whatever emotion it is. And then when you really keep your attention there, you can listen to the thoughts that that's generating within you. For example, if you're feeling frustration and you really just keep your attention on where you feel that tightness in your body or the contraction in your body, there might be a sense of, but there's nothing else I can do. And very soon, if you just let the voice come of your thoughts, and just as you have your attention there, that the thoughts will come into your head. These are not true thoughts. These are the self-sabotaging thoughts. These are the thoughts that are there to keep you small. So now you're beginning to make this invisible barrier visible, because you're hearing the thoughts that your subconscious is feeding you in order to suppress you and to keep you doing what you think subconsciously you need to do to survive. And that is where you can start to see how this is all playing out. So let me give you some examples of people I have worked with and their various gifts and their coping strategies and what they created from fear and what they created when they broke through their fear, just so that you can really get an understanding of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to start with shall we call her Kirsten? So Kirsten is extremely gifted, out of the box original thinker. She's a real visionary. And in order to suppress herself, with working with these techniques a lot, she was able to find in herself the understanding that when her self-suppression has always been to make the conclusion, the identity, and this is always about what identity have I made deep down about myself that keeps me stuck. So her identity was, I'm wrong. There was always a version of I'm wrong. So what she created in that was that in her life, that people didn't trust her, believe her, and would be quite aggressive and defensive to her when she expressed her ideas, so confirming to her that she was wrong. And now what actually was going on there was, when she had this belief that I'm wrong, even though she was coming up with brilliant and visionary solutions to things, there would be part of her telling her that she was wrong, which would make her become very, very defensive and try and irrationally prove herself to people and be quite aggressive with them, really, with her views. And when people heard this aggression and heard her saying stuff which then didn't come across as very credible, because she was just trying to push her view without listening to theirs, they would become extremely defensive. And then think, because she was just, because of her wounded idea that she was wrong, she would express it in a way that didn't sound credible and that sounded crazy. So with all of this, her experience was that everyone was aggressive. Whenever she expressed her true self, she was always met with people being aggressive towards her. And when she started to understand this pattern, which was actually backed up by I'm wrong, and therefore I'm a terrible person. So when she started to see this and to do what's necessary to shift it, which we'll come on to in the next video, she started to develop a new sense of self-trust, and she would back herself when she had ideas. So then she was creating, when she was coming up with new solutions for things which were visionary and powerful, but even though they were avant-garde, they would work, and people would sit up and say, how did you do that? And instead of getting all defensive about it, she would trust herself and she would put it across in an entirely different way. And very soon she had secured herself a job in a company which was looking for innovative solutions. And she was able this time to get people on board with her new ideas. And when they saw that they were working out, they were interested in what she was doing. And she started to get promotions, and she started to get more and more credibility. And now she has created for herself a career that she loves, in which she is respected, and which she has now moved into a completely different chapter of her life, where she trusts herself and she actually likes herself, because this story of I'm wrong and I'm bad is not active anymore. So then I have another wonderful client, we call her Mary. Now, Mary was a corporate lawyer, again, an in-house corporate lawyer, very beautiful, capable, soft, gentle lady, who she has psychic gifts. She's a spiritual healer, which obviously is something that you don't tell everyone about if you're a corporate lawyer, because it's not considered normal in those circles, mostly. So basically her coping strategy, we rooted long and hard to find this, but through the techniques that I was telling you about, we found out that her fundamental identity and coping strategy that she used was that the identity was I'm not safe. So with this I'm not safe wounded strategy, what she actually attracted to herself was a very abusive relationship. And she had kids, and she felt not safe at all. There was some emotional and physical abuse, and she really needed to get away from that. So when she identified that this belief, I'm not safe, was at the bottom of all of this, she could start to see how what she would do was to tell herself she was a bad person unless she put everyone else's needs first. So that would make her safe. If people thought she was a good person and did all these other things for other people, then she would be safe, because they would be good to her then. So she attracted this relationship with somebody where she was appeasing them and they were approving of her, and then turned abusive on her. She also would end up just blurting things out to people that she didn't know whether she could trust or not, because she felt that she lost her ability to discern who she could trust and who she couldn't, because she lost her self-trust. She also lost her ability to follow her passions, and that was how her gifts and her abilities as a psychic and her spiritual gifts, which would have allowed her to feel really safe, she pushed them away and put them to one side. So when she saw this belief that she was making, that I'm not safe, and started to change that, then she brought her spiritual gifts back on board and her psychic gifts, and she was able to create this deep sense of safety. She was able to leave the relationship, create a new house and life for herself away from that and for her children, and then started following her spiritual gifts, doing courses and developing her own practice in relation to that, and wrote me a letter some months after we finished working together, just saying everything that she had visioned was now coming true for her, with her new sense of identity she'd created by breaking free of the wounded strategy. So I hope those examples, as long as my example of my strategy of not good enough is allowing you to see how, when you have these gifts and potentials, you end up suppressing them to keep yourself safe, and you end up self-sabotaging yourself, and then there is power and potential that you can live into when you break free from them. So as you can see, the key to this, if you want to find your own, is first of all, as I say, to feel into the resistance that comes up in your body, the contraction, where you actually feel it physically, when you go towards creating what you want. Not making it wrong, not trying to push it away. In fact, the other, just completely accepting it and allowing it, and then listening to what it's telling you. And then when you ask yourself the questions. So in this belief that I have, for example, in this belief that I'm not good enough, who are the other people? Like, what's going on with them? So for example, in my situation of working in the law, in the world where I'm not good enough, what are clients? Clients are people, or the people I work for don't value what I can do. Okay, so I can see that that's how I'm creating the story. And okay, so what do I do when I feel that people don't value me? Okay, I feel like I have to prove myself. What do I do when I feel I have to prove myself? Okay, I over-engineer things, I overthink things. What happens when I overthink things? Oh yeah, when I overthink things, I take ages to do them. I check too many sources, I become inefficient, I don't trust myself, I come across as unconfident. And all of a sudden, the whole way that you're creating the situation that you don't like, which you thought you weren't creating, and it was just bad luck that kept happening to you, you start to see how you're creating it. And finally, the question is, in this belief system where I believe I'm not good enough, what am I doomed to? What's the doomsday scenario that my fear thoughts are making up? And in the not good enough example, it's okay, so in a world where I'm not good enough, then I can never succeed. And if I can never succeed, I'm doomed to be a failure. So I'm doomed to failure. And then you can see how, when you believe you're doomed to failure, what you do and what happens as a result. I don't trust myself. I don't show up as confident. I don't perform at my best. I'm closed down. I create fear. The whole thing just becomes really apparent. So I invite you, after you've tapped into your feelings and listened to what the thoughts that are created are, I invite you to ask yourself, what identity have you made for yourself deep down underneath all of that? It's like an I am identity. Who are you? What is the kind of wounded version of like, I'm not, the shame identity, the sort of not the negative identity, what, like I'm not good enough, or I'm always wrong, or I let people down, or what kind of identity have you made? And in that world where you believe that, when you believe that, who are other people, and how do you show up, and what are you doomed to? And if you take the time to answer those questions, your wounded strategy will start to appear before you. Now, what I would say is that I know it is far easier to find this and to make it apparent if you have support to do so. And if you would like to do support to do so, I will talk in the last video about what programs and offerings that I have to support you to get to the bottom of your deep-rooted coping strategy. And in the next video, what we're going to talk about is how to shift deep-rooted coping strategy.